When it comes to funnels, they all really do work. Workshops work well. Webinars still work. ESLs work. Live events work. Challenges work. Running a lead magnet works. I have yet to see a structure that is not successful. The component that leads to the success is typically the offer, making sure that the offer is appealing to the person on the other side of it. I spent a lot of time in the agency world over the last few years and kind of got myself separated a little bit from working with clients and getting out and networking with people, and kind of just really hunkered down and was just working with the people that I was working with. And that separation from that loss of connection inside of the community, people that I was working with, going out to events, getting back out into that world, it feels like I was, in a relationship for 15 years and now I'm back in the dating pool. So just trying to reconnect with people. There's just something to be said about community connection and the depth of it that is not something that you can very quickly create. But when you have removed yourself from it for 3 years, it is something that I've really grown to miss. So I think even from a business growth perspective, because when I trace back all of my business success, it really all stems from connections and referrals that I've created that came from being a part of groups, that came from going to masterminds, being in masterminds, going to events. So that has definitely been something that I feel I've been missing. And then also from the personal side of it as well, just being around people to have conversations I was just writing down this morning, have one conversation with just somebody every single week, just these little micro things that we just totally take for granted inside of what we're doing. It's not to do with selling, it's to do with depth of connection. And that leads to things down the road, but it also leads to personal fulfillment inside of what we do as well.
It is amazing. I really, it takes me a while sometimes to notice, and I usually notice because I feel stuck in my business, or I'm trying to grow, or I'm not getting clients or whatever. And then when I look, what's happened is I have just completely stopped connecting with people because it's so easy for me to just stay in my beautiful little bubble here where the sun's shining and the trees are green and the birds are singing, and I can just get up and get my coffee and go to work, take my kid to school. And I don't really have to do that stuff, but it's a big missing. And when I start back to it, I'm kind of like you. I think it sounds like you're having this now where you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's actually a good thing. I should be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time where probably 2018, just a few bad experiences inside of kind of masterminds and business coaching groups, and with both my wife and I, and we were working together at the time. And then we kind of just started to slowly remove ourselves from the space because we didn't like what was going on. We had a couple bad experiences, and then we kind of just retreated. And then we've been on this journey over the last, now it's 5-6 years, and kind of trying to reemerge. And then it's okay, well, what communities are out there? Because I've kind of removed myself from the space in some respect. And it's okay, I don't even know, reaching out to friends. It's hey, are you a part of any groups and communities? And people are no, I'm not in any right now. And trying to figure out, okay, well, where are these people congregating? And slowly trying to re-expose ourselves. So people like Dylan and his community, it's okay, I'm in there, I want to get more active, and slowly trying to seek out where I want to be. But also at the same time, I've got these thoughts of what do I want to create something like this as well. I have no idea what it is. It's just these little glimmers of ideas that have been dropping in over the last year of something that I would like to create, which is effectively what I've been searching for and haven't been able to find. But there's so much power to it. And just like you said, you don't realize you miss it until, it's a little too late. And you're like, shit, gotta catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you brought up an interesting point around it too, is when you decide, okay, I need to connect, right? Well, with who and for what purpose, right?
Yes.
Because sure, I talk to people anyway. Right? I mean, I talk to people, but there are things that I'm not going to talk about with, other parents from my kid's school necessarily, or, this group of friends or that group of friends. It's just not, they don't have anything to say about that. We're not peers in all the same places, right? So really trying to hone in on finding those communities or those people or groups of people that connect with that, I don't know, create forward motion for you. It's the only way I can think of it.
Absolutely.
That seems to be the challenge too.
Yeah, different phases of our personal and professional careers, we're searching for different things. There was a point in my career where it was you're joining programs to get a goal. So they're teaching you how to, joining Sam Ovens group to learn how to, build this funnel and run some paid advertising. But you reach a point where you're not just looking for that person's strategy on running ads or building a funnel or creating a course. You're looking for more of a community, but I found that so much more difficult to find because I'm not trying to learn a skill. I'm trying to be exposed to like-minded people. And also there's the business side of it. And for me, like a personal development side of it as well, where there's just like you said, there's certain things that you share when you're around different people, and trying to find those people, I've personally found really, really difficult over the last few months.
It's so wild that we're talking about this right out the gate, because I mean, this is pretty much exactly why Bill and I met and kind of hit it off. Was we had both just been through years ago now, like 3 years ago, 3 years ago, we had both been through some of those, programs or masterminds where we didn't like it. It didn't jive with us. And it felt overpriced and over promised. And then we retreated. And I'd say we're all kind of in the same boat. We're looking for something, we're feeling it out, we're doing our own thing, but we're also looking for connection. Just the other day, I had this revelation that I should just make a goal to connect with someone every day. And that's kind of lofty potentially, but you can kind of put feelers out there and just make it a goal to just connect with them. It doesn't have to have a goal attached to it, which is kind of the hard part, because you're like, oh, my sales are down, my connections are down, people aren't following me, whatever. I need to go connect with people. But I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you're doing it that way versus just no attachment, curiosity led connection.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a part of me that doesn't want to do that. My introvert part doesn't want to do that. But at the same time, and Miles, you and I actually talked about this, and I've pretty much done it for the last couple of weeks. Connected with somebody every day.
Awesome.
One way or the one, even if it's just me catching up with somebody I haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how I think one of the things, if you are in the chaos of growth, right? Like you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and always you get into this, it feels, chaotic, it feels kind of all over the place. And one of the things that I think we're looking for in connection is something other than that chaos, right? And something to help stabilize us and pull us forward and open up new things. And it's interesting because even when I just call somebody and catch up with them, and it has nothing to do with business or work, there's no result, direct business result in it. First of all, I don't know what's going to happen later, but I always leave that conversation better than when I got into it.
Yeah.
And that just helps me do whatever's next.
Yeah. That's beautiful. This is something I think about a lot right now. So what I've noticed about myself is I've been this massive journey on discovery of who I am, what I need, how I'm wired, what I need to thrive, the environment that I need. And I know that on calls where I can talk shop and I have the opportunity to help somebody, I get off that call feeling very good. One of the biggest mood enhancers that I can have is being able to get on a call, try and listen and provide feedback and insights with no intention of selling. So I've had a couple calls over the last few weeks where I had the opportunity to do that, and I just get off of those calls feeling awesome. And it is treading that line between connection and persuasive marketing with the underlying of trying to make money that I find is incredibly difficult, especially with the marketing industry and the coaching programs that we're so exposed to, because connecting with somebody every single day is generally taught as a strategy to make money. We know that in order to make sales, we have to have conversations. In order to have conversations, we have to try and connect with people. And then it slides to the opposite side of the spectrum, which leads into cold DMs and messaging people, trying to jump on sales calls with the underlying intention of trying to convert them into a client. And something that I've spent a lot of time focusing on, because I've gone down, my wife is getting her master's in psychology, very big into personal growth, a lot of reflection on myself, realizing that most of the decisions I make aren't actually fueled by making more money. And okay, but now how do you create business growth while not setting traditional goals the way that we're taught to? And this is something that I don't have the answer, but something I've been thinking very deeply on. And it's going into things like Buddhist philosophy, where they don't have goals. It's more centered around aspirations. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And that is, you can kind of peel that back into, this means making decisions that are in alignment with my core values. So I've been thinking of that a lot as I was doing some Q2 planning around, okay, as I start to look to grow moving forward, what are the core values that I want to be building things from? And there was a couple quotes that I heard from Justin Welsh in a couple podcasts I was listening to recently, where one on pricing, he said, people often seem like they're trying to retire off of selling you their program with the pricing these days. And how he said he never wants somebody to feel like they're amidst a marketing tactic when they're exposed to you. And I was like, I really like that, because I want authenticity to come through in what I do, because I've been persuaded, I've been sold to, I don't like it. I don't respond to cold DMs. So if I'm doing that, it just doesn't feel in alignment with my core values. But deep connection is something that I want to cultivate. So it's trying to go, okay, we want to have these conversations, but I want it to be driven through connection without the intent being trying to sell somebody.
You know, maybe there's a distinction in there, Landon, at least one that I'm hearing, like something between a distinction between goal and intention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a goal, a sales goal, you know, might be to have X number of conversations and convert that into X number of sales, right? I think I can always look at I don't even like to call it this, but a sales conversation, right? Because that's what it is. And whether it's the first one I've had with someone, and oftentimes there'll be more than one, right? With that person, or the next one, whatever. My intention is for connection and fit. Is this a fit? Is this a fit for them? Is this a fit for me? Right? Especially as a coach, I really don't want to work with somebody unless it feels really good. That's not going to be good for me or for them. And I know it's different when you're selling different things, but I think fit is just so important. And if I go at that conversation from that perspective, hey, I want to have a great conversation. I want to give somebody some value, you know, for that time. And if there's a fit, if it really feels like there's a fit, great. We can talk about them buying something, but otherwise, I don't care. That helps me a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. That change in perspective and how you approach it. And then it makes it so much more casual. And that energy is felt through. Like the other person can
Absolutely.
totally feel when you're trying to manipulate them and all of these things that we've been taught. Like people see, in my opinion, people see through it.
Oh yeah.
Or my favorite one, do you have a credit card?
Yeah.
Fuck you. Don't ask me if I have a fucking credit card. Are you kidding me? That's my absolute favorite one. I love that.
Yeah, I've been on the end of some terrible sales calls. I've got one program I inquired about because I know the people that are running it, and I wanted to know more about it. And I've got, I believe, 18 SMS follow-ups over the last, I believe, like 6 weeks. I'm just like, you know what? The only thing I want to know about the program is the price.
Right.
I'm sold on the people running the program. I know exactly what they do. I've been following them for a long time. They won't tell me the price. They just keep following up like I have to jump on a sales call. And I'm like, I'm sold on the program. I just need to know if I can afford it right now or if I should be planning this for Q3 or Q4. And they just won't tell me. So I won't get on the sales call. It's just like it's just like a thing right now. But
Yeah.
I'm like, just like,
Oh, I love
I don't want to jump on a
Nope.
60-minute call for you to try and tell me I already know what the program is. I'm on their email list. I follow their content. Just tell me the fucking price. It's the only thing that I care about. And they won't. I'm like, just like for this reason, I won't jump on a sales call with you.
Somewhere along the journey, we decided to really complicate the sales process, especially, I mean, high ticket. We're pretty much talking high ticket here. And it's like, we're going to hide everything until they're ready, and then we're going to reveal the information. Otherwise, they're going to run away scared. But it's like,
they were going to spring it on you.
Yeah. And you have to hold them through everything. And I get it. Sales is an art, and there's so many different ways to do it. But there's something about, treating the person you're selling as a human that knows. Everyone kind of has a basic understanding of this stuff nowadays. Like, don't patronize me. I'm not a child. And then guide them and ask the right questions and stuff. But when someone tells me the price right off the bat, if I ask, there's this immediate trust of like, okay, they're not hiding anything from me. It actually makes me want it more. Even if like you said, if I can't afford it, great. I have a goal to work towards because I really want into this program or whatever it is. So it's
and plus it's not 2005. Okay. we all know about internet marketing. We all know about all of this shit. This is not a new thing. Right. And Landon, it sounds like you're probably talking about a program that has something to do with marketing and business development and that kind of thing. Is that, yeah. So if you tell me that program's $10,000, if you just tell me that, but even before anything else, that's going to make me go, okay, is it like, I want to know why it's worth that.
Yeah.
Then you can tell me why it's worth it. Right. You don't have to tell me why it's worth it first, because I don't even know what you're talking about. Like
just keep it simple.
It's backwards. I realize we've done something though, man. We've totally skipped over something. We've been talking about you and connecting and your business, and I don't know what you do. So why don't you tell us about your business and where you are and where you see yourself going next?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I've been in internet marketing for upwards of like 18 years in one form or another. So I got started way back when doing like website development, website design, internet marketing, back before it's in the shape that it was, before we were running social media ads. And I'd say what I do presently, if I'm talking to like agencies and stuff like that, would be like fractional CMO work. If I'm talking to somebody that is a coach, I would say I do more kind of paid advertising, marketing strategy, business coaching. I'm in this dilemma of trying to decide what I want my label to be. What do I want my little elevator pitch to be? And I haven't come up with an exact, but I would say I'm a marketing strategist. I help businesses, small businesses, creators sell digital programs utilizing paid advertising would be kind of like the meat and potatoes of what I do. Anywhere from running paid ads, developing automated sales systems, helping them craft their offer, developing their sales funnel, getting the back end implementation, email marketing set up, making sure that the economics are right so that it can actually be profitable, which is something people often don't realize, and
Yeah.
just really making sure that they're set up to actually see success. Ads aren't enough alone. Just running paid advertising when you are ignoring all of these other components, we all know it is not going to render the result that we're looking for. So I really like to peel back all of the layers, really dig in deep and figure out what people actually need in order to see success. So that's what I'm focusing on primarily from a service standpoint, while at the same time of just working on developing my own personal brand. And my goal over the next year is to roll out a few of my own products. I have this soft spot, just like we were talking about people that have been a part of these programs, been oversold, underdelivered, not finding what they're looking for. I don't want to have a bunch of $10,000 programs. I want to be able to serve people that have been exposed to that. And now we're just like, I can't invest in another one because it didn't work. So I want to try and serve this part of the market. And I have a very big passion for those people because I was that person. So I'm really passionate about developing things to assist those people in the future.
So you've been in this space of internet marketing for 18 years. And I almost said, well, I'm sorry, when you said that, because it can be crazy. And you started in what I call the Wild West days, before social media was really a big part of it. I worked with some people back in those days who, they did, they did the things that we're all taught to do now, right? And made just insane amounts of money fairly by today's standards easily, right?
Yeah.
It just wasn't like it is today. And it's obviously grown so much more complex and competitive. What do you feel like, just for you personally, what do you feel like is one piece of where you've had to keep your mindset that's enable you to be successful and to keep doing this for as long as you have?
Ooh. That's a very difficult question to answer because I felt like it has been a constant journey of trying to figure out what that mindset needs to be. So that's definitely something that I've always been of the belief that everything comes down to our mindset, to like a behavioral, habitual, psychological component that drives everything that we're doing. Now that belief has been held, not always has been practiced in terms of what I'm doing.
Sure.
I've got ADHD. So when I look back over all of the things that I've done, I'm like, man, if I could have just stuck with the same one for the last 18 years, I'd be in a much different place than I am now. But doing all of the things I've done has really given me a very diverse set of skills that I'm able to bring to the table for the people that I work with. I think that the two underlying things are consistency and curiosity. I think are really big underlying factors in just staying in the game. Being curious on how to serve people, how to help people, new ways of doing things, and the consistency of not just consistency of like, I'm going to write every single day, but the consistency of just not giving up. Like that has been something that I've like written on my wall before of I've done a lot of things and failed more times than I could even count. Like I've started more businesses than I usually have to sit down and like write them all out to try and remember what they all are. But just the fact of never stopping, always getting back up, even if it's not always a day, it's not always a week before you're like back into things, it's not always a feel good, but just not stopping and continuing to move forward, I think has served me the most throughout my career.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so easy to stop, especially I first of all I resonate with ADD, bouncing all over, doing different things, multifaceted, all that stuff, and you look back on it and you're like, God, if I would have just stuck with that thing for all these years, well, I would be crushing it. But there's this thing that I don't know what it is, like we have this huge surge of energy around something, and then it always fades one way or another. It seems like, or it changes, and then we have this choice to like, okay, now I got to get to work on this, and it's not going to be as fun or easy, but I got to do it, or I'm going to jump over to this other thing. And then you have the inner voice, which we like to talk about a lot. So I think I heard on another conversation that you've labeled yourself as an overthinker, or maybe recovering overthinker. I don't know where you are in that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because I resonate. Bill is probably laughing inside because we talk all the time about my overthinking. I would say
I don't
Bill.
know what you're talking about, Miles.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah,
So
I've
there you
never
go.
heard you say that.
So I'd say Bill is pretty good at not overthinking. I'm curious, what is overthinking to you, Landon, and how that kind of shows up in your world today?
Oh man, overthinking, absolutely, especially as an entrepreneur with ADHD. We're just wired to overthink. Our minds are constantly racing, constantly having conversations with myself. I'm literally sometimes look around to be like, did someone hear that? But no, it was just like thoughts running through my head. So definitely I think it is, you can call it shiny object syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
or we're just always thinking. And not only as somebody with ADHD, but then we have this entrepreneurial side. So we have these creatives. So we always have ideas. Everything we see as an idea, we see as an opportunity. And then you factor in social media, and we're seeing all of these people that we're comparing ourselves to. And then you see this person doing that, and then you see that person doing this other thing. And then you're like, well, I should be doing that. And this person saw results doing this, so I should probably do this. So we're constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions. I would say that is overthinking. And then when it comes to the perfectionist side, which as a ADHD entrepreneur could be, derived from RSD, so sensitivity dysphoria, where we want things to be perfect. We don't handle rejection very well. And I think this is across the board with entrepreneurs. We want it to be perfect. We don't want people to judge our stuff, even though like 4% of our social media following will ever see anything we post. So nobody sees the stuff we do anyways. But there is so many things causing all of these overthinking. So it's like, it's got to be perfect. I got to do all of these things. Like even myself doing Q2 planning was more focused around what I am not going to put my focus into. So with all of this overthinking has really pulled me down this road of consistency and what that means for me and how to cultivate that, because we just have this, there's only so many things we can do. I refer to it as the consistency threshold before everything falls off. And we're always trying to add things on. And it's like getting very clear on what we actually want to accomplish. And this is not like a one and done thing. It's not like plan your week and then you're good. It's like, no, we're just like constantly going through this iterative process of reprioritizing, reevaluating things, taking an idea. Should I be focusing on this now? When I try and handle that process, I try and get as much information out of my head as possible. So I'm always thinking, if you could see my office right now, I have over 150 sticky notes sitting in front of me because they're just all ideas. And then every now and then I go through and I'll just like throw like 20 of them out because they're no longer relevant. But I need to get the idea out just because I need to get it out, put it on paper, let it kind of noodle around a little bit. when I start to see recurring patterns of making the same notes over again and over again and over again, I start to follow those trails a little bit. Like to journal. I like to just throw a lot of ideas out at my wife and just kind of like let her see when I keep repeating things. But overthinking, man, is so difficult, but it's not a bad thing, because if we look at where it's coming from like a curiosity standpoint. And I think if we were to remove that, we would lose so much of the creativity that drives our ability to do what we are actually able to do. So it is trying to hold on to and understand that this is not a bad thing. It's just a matter of doing the best we can to manage it so it doesn't become too much of a distraction, pulling us away from where we're trying to go.
Man, you just made such a good point. Not only that it's not a bad thing, but even just first, you're aware that this is how your brain works.
Yeah.
Right? The minute you become aware of that, well, you don't have to be sort of lost in it or a victim of it, right? Bouncing around all over the place. I would also say that even when you do that, because man, have I done this, where I look back and say, you know, if I'd stuck to that thing, I'd probably be killing it. Well, maybe. Or you might have just gotten really bored and blown everything up, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's what happens.
There are I honestly, in my experience of life and the world, there are very few people who either find or come in with this sort of very narrow focus of this thing that they do or want to do or create or want to create, and are able to just, that's what they do, right? And it's coming from the entertainment business. Most of the time when you look at the people that are household names for us and the people that are a step below that, or maybe many steps below that, that's the biggest differentiator, is that most of those people that we would call famous or whatever are so singularly focused on this thing, right? Whatever version of it, whether that was to become famous or to win a Grammy, or I'm just making shit up, right? But you get what I mean, right? That literally, they got nothing else. There is nothing but that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what allows for that. And I think some of us think, I know I have had thoughts like, well, I don't have that, so how am I ever going to be successful? Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stories about success that we hear come from people like that, right?
Yeah. We could go down this rabbit hole because I think about this way more than I should. But
well, you're an overthinker, so that makes sense.
Because when the trouble in the industry that we're in is, you're right, it's the same in the marketing industry. It's the same when we look at public figures like Gary Vaynerchuk and go, okay, he's been literally talking about the same thing, wrote multiple books on the exact same thing for a very long time. Most people aren't able to maintain forward momentum for that long of a period of time. But the people that are, and I'm making assumptions, do usually see success at some point in time. I've done a lot of research into, and you go, okay, the podcasts that are crushing it, okay, they've got 800 episodes out now. The YouTubers that are doing amazing, they've been putting out videos for 10 to 15 years. And you go through all of these industries, and you even look at actors. Like, I've done a bunch of articles on, like, Dwayne Johnson, worth $800 million. And it's when you peel it back and go, okay, like, he started wrestling like 24 years ago. And then he got into movies, and he was in movies for 13 or 18 years before he then partnered with Under Armour and then did his energy drink. And now, like, all of these things that he's done throughout this journey to be worth all of this much money. And it's all been focused around the exact same thing, which was entertainment. And then you get inside of marketing, those people are teaching the courses and running the masterminds, teaching the methods that the rest of us have a very high likely chance of not being able to follow through on.
Yeah.
And then there's
a big difference between selling marketing to other marketers
yes.
and using those marketing techniques to sell something else. There's a big difference, and that's something they don't tell you about.
Yes.
They don't talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's so true. I spend way too much time noodling on these topics.
I think you actually solved it. And maybe you don't know this, but if we tie it back together, what you just told me is that it comes back to consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Is choosing something consistent. It may not look like Dwayne Johnson, right? Or it may not look like somebody else. It doesn't matter who, right? But choosing something to be consistent at. And then just continuing to do it. I love that you said most of the podcasts that are crushing it have 800 episodes. Miles and I, when we started this, what we said is, look, we just have to do this for as long as it's still fun. Don't look at the metrics. Don't look at the analytics. Don't try to do anything, but just keep showing up.
Yeah. But along the way, we've also found ways to re-energize it. Like, it hasn't been this linear increase or anything. It's very up and down. Well, I wouldn't say very, but it does go up and down, motivation wise, energy wise. And I'll have some low moments where I'm like, oh, it's not growing. Nothing's happening. Like, the quality isn't there that I want because I'm a perfectionist. And then I'll also have huge peaks where I'm like, this is fucking awesome. It all, like, we stuck with it and it's all making sense now. Where we started, it's completely different, but somehow perfectly aligns. Like, stuff that I didn't even think about kind of clicks into place. And I'm like, wow, we could have given up, a year ago and I would never get to this point. So it's sticking with it. And it's also maybe letting it evolve naturally and finding new ways to kind of look at it.
Yeah. And I think it's so much of it. There's so much individuality that comes through this, where nothing is cookie cutter. It's not a new era, one size fits all baseball cap where, like, you have changed since you started this podcast. So the podcast is going to evolve, or else you're going to get bored with it. That's just the natural way that it's going to work for most of us. And at the same time, we do, like you said, we have these massive urges of these passions, and it's not always a bad thing to chase them. Like, sometimes it could be the thing that keeps everything else interesting, being able to pursue these passions. But at the same time, we also have to be okay with things changing. Mm-hmm. Like, if all of a sudden you were like, we want to do a different topic now. Like, I'm tired of this topic. Like, there is inherently nothing wrong with that unless you place a judgment on it that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And playing a longer game,
100%.
And this from internet marketing, especially back in the days when you started, there was I don't even know what to call it besides a fairy tale. There was a fairy tale that making money online or with any kind of internet business could happen fast, that it'd be fast, And even with the people who I've met who are wildly successful and that I think are wildly successful, it wasn't fast. It wasn't fast. And it took a lot of work, and it actually took a lot of money for them to make the money that they're making. And that myth, that fairy tale, is pervasive. And especially in Instagram world, where it looks like people do stuff real fast, or something goes viral for somebody or whatever it is. I don't know. I think we all get trapped in this perception that whatever we're doing needs to be successful quickly, or we need to do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Back, 15 years ago, people could just create a product that they saw on Dr. Oz, put it up on an affiliate network, and start generating sales. So it was a completely different world. But a lot of those people got sued. A lot of those businesses didn't last very long. They made a quick buck for a little while. There's always give and take. A business that grows super fast has its own set of consequences that come with that. It's not
Yes.
as, sunshine and rainbows as everybody thinks it is. When it comes down to it, when you have a multi-million-dollar business, those are some of the most stressful people that you'll ever come in contact with, because they're always working. They have this massive team that they have to oversee. There's always a fire that they need to put out.
Mhm.
So people want what they think is associated with that, but they don't necessarily understand what is actually comes along with reaching that set of goals.
Oh, you make such a good point, because you touched on this earlier, that whole comparing yourself, to others. And you look out there, and if you really look at that person you're comparing yourself to, if you could find out what their life really looks like and what they do, then you really got to ask, is that what I want my life to look like?
Yeah.
And most of the time the answer is no.
Yeah, you're comparing
I
yourself to
don't.
the best parts of their life.
Right.
Yeah,
Picking
exactly.
and
I
choosing.
was in a mastermind, and we ended up leaving because we were burnt out, because we were starting to live our lives like the person that was running the mastermind. And there was multiple other individuals that ended up doing the same. They just started to adopt what these people were doing, and it wasn't sustainable for them. And there's nothing wrong with, yeah, everybody is different. Everybody values different things. So if Alex Hormozy is out there and working every minute he possibly can to reach this level of success, that's awesome. But that's not what I want my life to personally look like.
Right.
And the other side of it is we have this false perception of what people's success actually is. I've had people that I know from like my home city reach out to me on social media thinking that I am way more successful than I actually am, because
Yeah.
people just assume like you're posting on social media constantly that you're doing really well, and it's like it's largely not the case. A lot of people that don't post ever is because they're too busy actually out there doing things that generate income. And I've worked with businesses doing millions of dollars, and then when you see the profit margins and see that they're losing money, or they're only at a 3 or 4% profit margin, and they can't make payroll, and they're laying people off, and you're like, oh wow, like I thought these companies were doing so amazingly well, but my perception was so far from the truth.
Yeah.
Man, I can already tell that we could easily talk for 3 hours, no problem, because I have so many other questions around this kind of general topic. But I do want to dip into, if you're cool with it, like the weeds of funnels a little bit for a second, like geek
Sure.
out on some marketing stuff. And I think what I'll ask is, so is there a like one kind of, let's just start here. Is there one kind of strategy or funnel that you would recommend for someone? Let's take Bill, for example, or myself. Like we have a higher ticket offering, coaching or agency of some kind. Is there like one kind of tried and true, simple funnel or campaign or system that you can set up that is going to get you moving in the right direction and generate those conversations, whether it's subscribers first or followers or booked calls? Like we were talking about that earlier. How do you create those conversations without being salesy and going in the cold DMs and that whole game? Is there another way to kind of start those conversations more organically?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I kind of view it as a very similar to when I was in the fitness space. You can lose weight on 17 different diets, and it's just a matter of one that feels good, one that you can stay consistent with. When it comes to funnels, it's very much the same way. Workshops work well, webinars still work, VSLs work, live events work, challenges work, running a lead magnet works. They all really do work. I have yet to see a structure that is not successful. The component that leads to the success is typically the offer. making sure that the offer is appealing to the person on the other side of it. And then we have to take another look at what we're defining as success. Most things will be successful if you're patient enough. Where we get into trouble is when we're trying to see positive return on our spend on day one. And we go, okay, is that realistic? Is that possible? And that's the component that is effectively the factor that determines, okay, how do we want to go about doing this? Because if we're thinking long term, I can show you multiple people that don't run ads, that generate all of their sales organically through their content, because people just naturally come to their pages, go to their sites, and buy their programs, whether that be high ticket, low ticket, whatever it is. So audience and branding can play a factor. But when we don't have that, we have two options, which is running paid advertising or getting in front of other people's audiences, which is through partnerships or joint venture. So if we're focusing on paid ads, okay, we need to be generating paid ads into some sort of sales mechanism to get people to a point where we're opening up a sales conversation. Now, there's kind of two ways that I like to go about doing this. Number one is a little bit more of a long-term approach, which I think is great for smaller creators, great for people that want a little bit more authenticity. And that is usually by having some sort of lead magnet or something that is building your email list and then running workshops and converting people on the back end. I really am a fan of experiential components, especially when we're doing high-priced programs that is led by some sort of expert, guru, whatever it might be, where there is a person that's kind of leading that charge for them, giving people the ability to get the experience of what it's like to work with that person, their energy, because so much of those higher priced programs are going to be based on just the person wanting to work with that person. And the larger your audience is, the more time they have inside of your world, through your content, through your email list, the easier that sale is. And then also, it's just one of those things where you have people that just, they'll buy whatever you're selling because they just want to work with you. So that's why I like, for smaller creators, having a lead magnet that is getting leads onto your email list that is relevant to what you're selling at a low cost. And then through email marketing, through running workshops to your warm audience, and then presenting offers on the back end of that. I really like that strategy because it's incredibly simple.
Yeah.
If we move aside from that, it is creating some sort of sales vehicle. And that's going to happen through either a webinar, a workshop, a live event, which could be like a live webinar, a live workshop, a challenge. All of them work. It just comes down to a matter of economics at that point in time. It is what is going to be most realistic for that industry and the level of competitiveness inside of that industry, and the price of the program, how much money we need to make today, how much money we have to invest in advertising. And then it's really just a math game at that point. Because I've seen people go in specific industries that are not quite as saturated because they're not the internet marketing industries, where they go directly from a paid ad to book a call. And they're doing 3-to-1. Yeah, I'd like a 10-to-1, but they're going cold ad to book a call to sell a $10,000 program, and they're doing a 3X. And they're spending $100,000, $200,000 a month on ads. So there's every iteration, and then the nuances are, industry dependent and brand size dependent. Like Tony Robbins can throw any ad up out there and it's going to work because people just have the brand recognition for who he is, and they're going to buy.
Wow. That, I love all of that because, and I love the kind of fitness diet analogy, like whatever's going to work for you, because it all works as long as you're patient enough. When you say workshop, can you just break that down briefly, like what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, so I would say workshop was kind of a term that was taken out of people getting burnt out on webinars. But
Right.
Effectively, what I would say would be some sort of video-based training where you're taking people in that are trying to solve trying to solve a specific problem, walking them through the reason, the underlying, the root of what's causing that problem that they're experiencing, the process that they need to go through to fix it, and trying to likely give them something that they can do to see a result.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually is going to be a smaller portion of what your bigger offer is solving for them.
Right.
The webinar thing's interesting. And I like that you distinguished webinar and workshop. As actually my wife just got on some webinar, and the last time she did this, I sat there and I could tell her what they were going to do next. I was like, okay, they just did this part of the video sales letter. They're about to do this next part. And then after that, they're going to do this, and then they're going to do that, and then they're going to do this. You know? And I mean, it's impossible for me to sit through those. I can't sit through it. And I know they work for some things. I can't do it. I think the workshop thing is just so much more flexible, right? Because for someone like me, I can make that a live workshop, have people show up, keep it short, keep it specific, get some conversation or back and forth going. And it just feels so much more personalized, and people actually get me and not just me as a talking head who's not really telling them anything, which is mostly what webinars, in my experience, do.
Yeah. And it really just comes down to every single one of them is just manipulating a different variable. So
Right.
you can do going straight to book a call. So you might get more calls booked, but they're going to be lower quality. You're going to have more people that don't show up, more people that have objections, more people that aren't ready to purchase. Putting a webinar or some sort of sales mechanism in between there requires them to have a level of time commitment. So they're going to be more qualified. They're going to have seen the offer, some of the results. So you're going to increase your show up rates and increase your conversion rates, but you're going to decrease the amount of calls you got. You could do, like there was a very large popular of like the 5 to 10 minute VSLs instead of the 60-minute webinars. And all that is doing is just, because people are dropping off and not staying for a full 60 minutes, you're giving them this shorter VSL. So you're going to increase the calls, but the quality isn't necessarily going to be the same. And different industries. So we're in the internet marketing space. We know if someone's running a webinar, all it's doing is leading to them presenting us with an offer. They're not actually going to teach us anything. They're just using it to sell us something. So I will not attend a webinar. But there's other industries where you get into like tech or SaaS or IT or these other industries where they don't have the same exposure to the marketing tactics that we do. So these terms still work, where people can say, sign up for my webinar, and people will sign up. I was looking at some dog trainers the other day and seeing that that's what they were doing. They were literally saying like, oh, here's a list of all of the webinars I've done. Because they're likely not running the webinar in the same format that the internet marketers are doing, where it is 100% persuasion, trying to just manipulate people to get them to book a call. They're likely doing it a little bit more as a training. So like the vernacular to us, because we're more sophisticated, we pick up on these nuances that certain industries aren't necessarily going to pick up on.
Makes so much sense. All right, one more left turn. How important is health and fitness in your world?
In my personal world, or like the world of the people that I work with?
In your personal world, in the work that you do personally.
In my work that I do personally, it's incredibly important. So I would say I do have a fitness background. So I was active kid, played sports. I've been working out every day since I was in high school. And I don't think outside of maybe vacation, missed more than a week in decades of being active. Now, as I've learned more about, who I am, even over the last year, learning more about ADHD and seeing how important being active exercise is, even from a driving concentration standpoint. I was doing a lot of things that were very beneficial for me before I realized they were beneficial for me. I've competed in 4 bodybuilding competitions, 2 powerlifting competitions, owned a gym for a while. So I've got a very large fitness background, but I still go to the gym probably 5-6 days a week, from strength training, yoga, cardio. It's imperative, the cornerstone of my routine, from mood, stabilization, making sure that I'm just being fit and active. Like, it used to be, how do I look better? And now it is like, how do I increase my health span so that I don't have trouble tying my shoes in 20 years from now, because I've got a history of chronic back pain. But it is so imperative. I have a sweet tooth, so I eat generally well, but I do indulge in sweets and pastries on a fairly consistent basis. A little bit more when I'm stressed, I'll admit, but so important. I think it is probably one of the cornerstone habits that I've had for the longest period of time.
That's amazing. Wow. And your routine, is it pretty consistent? Like, do you work out at the same time every day generally? Is it morning, afternoon?
Yeah, I am a massive creature of habit. I do not like my routine being disturbed. Nothing will ruin a day more for me than disturbing my routine. Like, if I have a call booked when I normally get my coffee, I'm just like not a happy camper. But I'm a morning person, so I'm up early, and working out is the first thing I'm doing in the morning. It's not, might be better for me to, have a meal before I work out so I have more energy, but it just has never worked for me to work out in the evening. There is just, from being tired to a dinner getting planned, people want to do something coming up that will interrupt my ability to do it in the evening. I've never enjoyed doing it in the afternoon. Just like, for me, like, just like fluctuating energy levels. I can keep things the most consistent when I work out first thing in the morning. So it's absolutely, I wake up, have some pre-workout, I go to the gym, and then my day starts.
That's awesome.
Well, since we're getting personal, how long did it take you to grow that fabulous beard?
Oh, this is actually, I cut like 3.5 inches off last week. So this is like very well groomed. It has been probably about 2 years that I've had it. I grew it once during COVID. It just kind of was like, I had never grown one before. So I just started, and then I got rid of it for a while because we were traveling in Mexico. And then we decided I was going to grow it again. And now it has kind of become like part of my identity. Like, I don't know who I would be without it, because it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
And people either love it or hate it. So I've got more compliments from men on the street than I have ever before since I've had a beard. And then I'll get people like my parents that are like, it needs to go, or like my grandparents that like can't even look at it because they just hate it so much. So it's created this like dichotomous viewpoint of people love it or hate it. There is no in between with the beard.
Well, as someone who spent, I don't know, probably 30 years of life with really long hair, I totally get it. And I think it's awesome and impressive.
Thank you.
You may have answered this already, because this is it for me. Like, I couldn't grow this till I was 35, and it's never going away. You may have already answered this, but do you consider yourself more of an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, I am the highest. If you give me a test, I rate like 100% introvert.
Yeah, you kind of said as much at the front, but I wanted to direct answer the question.
I was chatting with my wife yesterday, and we were like talking about doing some like local stuff and like starting to do some like work with local clients. I was like, nothing gives me more resistance than thinking about like joining the Chamber of Commerce or something like that. Like, so I'm super, super introverted. But it's interesting because so much of my success in business has been derived from groups, masterminds, communities.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that there's like this happy balance of, I don't want to do it, but I know it's important. Things like this for me will still drive anxiety coming into it, but I love having these conversations. I put out about 130 podcasts on my original fitness podcast, which was all interview based, which was awesome. So great for building connections, so fun just interviewing people. And then I started another one, which was just all me talking. I just did not find it as enjoyable. And then trying to find that proof of like when it was most successful, when I enjoyed it the most, was with those conversations. So there's this definite introvert, chasm that I got to bridge to do some of these things that I enjoy doing.
Well, as someone who has a podcast, I could not do this without Miles. And I think he would probably say the same thing. Like, there's just no way. And I think that it's sort of how it came to be, because we both said, well, I've been thinking about doing a podcast, but I don't want to just hear myself talk, and so I don't know, it makes me think all of us more introverted people just need to do stuff together so that we actually get out in the world.
Yes, I agree.
And you may have touched on this, but what's next?
What's next for me? This next quarter for me is really going to be focused around maintaining consistency around writing, which is what I've tried to really hone my focus on in terms of written content. I really enjoy writing. I process thoughts really well with writing. I also can produce it a lot quicker because it doesn't require editing and a video editor and YouTube covers and things like that. So I can produce it a lot quicker. So I love writing. So that's like my formal thing there. And then just serving clients in more of an intimate capacity. Moving forward from that, the things that I'm really thinking about are starting to craft something a little bit bigger than business, starting to try and think of what I want to create from a community standpoint, what I really like, the mark that I want to leave on this industry goes beyond just helping people make money. So I don't know what that is yet, but that is kind of like the big thing that is coming down for me in the future, is trying to just allow and create the space for that to come in, trying to figure out what that can, like we talked a lot about the community at the start, and that's where a lot of those thoughts for me have been coming from. I feel as though I almost see myself more as a motivational speaker than a marketer sometimes. And that really gives me a lot of fulfillment, is just being able to help people. So trying to figure out a way to bridge that with what I do is something that I'm going to be spending a lot of time thinking about over the next few months.
Well, that's exciting, because that means not only I can't wait to find out what happens, but then we'll have a great reason to have you back on.
Perfect.
Cool. Thank you, Landon. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, this was fantastic. You guys, amazing podcast. Probably one of the most casual conversations I've had. So thank you so much for having me on. It was great.
That wraps another episode of The Subtle Art of Not Yelling, your home for creative growth.
If our words have resonated with you, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It means a lot and helps us reach more creative entrepreneurs.
Join us next week as we continue to explore the art of quietly becoming a creative superpower and thriving without yelling.
Until then, keep nurturing your ideas, honing your craft, and shipping your work.
Because amazing things happen on the other side of finished.